Hi, I'm Kathy Ireland. I just finished interviewing Byron Matthews, and I've heard about where Miller Heiman Group is headed and its vision for the future. I'm impressed, and I think you will be too. Welcome to Elevate.
Okay. Very good, very good. Thank you very much. All right, good morning. How are you guys doing? Good? Okay. First off, I want to thank you for making the time and the investment to be here today. I realize that's a very big deal, so just thank you for being here with us today. You know, as Alan teed up the discussion today, you know, we really try to take a different theme for the content today. You know, typically we get in a room earlier in the year and talk about, well, what should the theme be? And usually it ends up being something around trends or something we're seeing in the industry. And we try to either focus specifically on that or kind of talk about broader trends. We thought this year that we should try to paint what we believe the trends will be in the future. So what's coming? What does the future of selling look like? And what do we believe are things that are important for all of you to think about as it relates to planning for that future? So I will kind of set the stage for the day. I'll try to kind of talk a bit about some of the kind of macro trends, but really set the context for the speakers after me, okay? Let me start with a couple of questions. I want to set up this a bit more and ask you guys a couple of questions to think about it. We won't use that gizmo thing we just tried. Let me just individually think about what this question means to you. What is the art of selling? What do you think about when you hear that? Is it somebody who knows exactly the right time to make that phone call, or having the right tone as it relates to handling an objection, or being able to build that relationship? Is that what the art of selling is? Successful communication. Okay. So think about that. Let me ask you this question. So what is the science of selling? So what does the science of selling mean to you? Is it coming up with that forecast and using the weighted average probability by stage and calculating what that forecast is? Is that the science of selling? Is it being familiar or being aware of when to walk away from a deal because you've qualified it, you've looked at it, and it tells you shouldn't go chase it, so therefore I won't? Is that the science of selling? Okay. Or is it also understanding when to make that phone call? Okay, so broader question here. What is sales? Is it an art or is it science? So not going to use the gizmo. We're going to go old school with hands here, all right? So is selling more? So I recognize that I was saying, well, it's both. Got it. Get it. Is it more art or is it more science? So please raise your hand if you think selling is more art than science. Okay, I'm going to go with somewhere in 15 to 20%. Science, just make sure I got that right. Okay, that's about right. So I asked this question, the first time I ever asked this question, used this slide, was in 2010. And no question about it, it was the opposite. No debate. It was a room like this and asked, is selling more art and science? And the majority of the people in the room felt like it was art. Okay? Call it, maybe science was around 20%. Imagine if I asked this question 40 years ago. 40 years ago. 40 plus years ago when Miller Heiman was first established, do you think there's a single person in the room who would have said it was science? What about 40 years from now? Do you think a single person in the room is going to think it's art? I don't think so. But I'm certain 40 years ago there weren't too many people that believed we would be where we are today. And I'm certain in 40 years from now, it's going to be a completely different game. And that is the condition in which I'm trying to set for the day as we talk a bit about the future. So here's what we believe. We believe selling will always be part art and science. Okay? And the path to success is to excel at both. There will always be some mix of each. But here's what we know for certain. is the science of selling is accelerating. And that will require new ways of thinking and execution. And we just have to embrace that and understand that now. Okay? And again, that's what the day is all about. So 3 things I'm going to talk about pretty quickly. I'll spend maybe 15 minutes or so. And then I'm going to hand this over and we're going to talk about artificial intelligence in the world of selling and really kind of get into it. But let me talk about 3 trends that I think, again, set the groundwork and the stage for the day. All right, number 1, data transparency. Here's what we think. The amount of transparency in the future is going to increase. Every salesperson's movements, behaviors, activities will be stored, analyzed, and understood. Imagine the impact of that. Number 2, that content will be ultimately personalized. If you think about the trend, 5 years ago we were talking about, this big trend of sales and marketing alignment. That's interesting. And what we were talking about is at the organizational level. We've got to make sure what marketing is talking about is how the salespeople represent their value proposition and make sure those 2 things are aligned. I mean, that's a bit old news. Today, it's about, or tomorrow, it's going to be even more about when that sales rep is in that specific situation with that specific client, what is the exact content needed in the moment? That's where the alignment will happen, much, much further down on the ground. Number 3, there's going to be new talent required, new skills, new capabilities, new knowledge. Salespeople will look more like scientists than ever before, or engineers. All right, in a technology-rich environment, it requires different skills and knowledge to succeed. All right, so 3 things. We'll get into those a bit more. Let's talk about the first one around transparency. So we believe in the future, almost everything you do, all the behavior, will be stored, captured, and analyzed. All right? And so what are the implications of that? I mean, really think about what that actually means in terms of the impact in a selling environment. If everything you do is captured and analyzed, what does that mean? There's actually a company that has reached out to us that we're currently working with right now, one of the largest tech brands in the world out of Asia. They came to us with this concept. Now, I have no idea, honestly, where it's going to go, but it definitely gets you thinking. They've come up with this idea of a sales Fitbit. All right? Like a sales fitness test. You wear this device, and it tracks everything you do. It syncs up with your calendar so it knows what you should be, what environment you're in, and it monitors your stress level, your heart rate, your activity, records what you say, and every time you go by your device, it syncs up on your device, and it gives you a score, gives you something to think about. Now, they reached out to us because they want to connect that to training. But imagine that. I have no clue if this thing's going to work. Frankly, I'll see it for the first time in a couple of weeks. But there's people thinking about this idea. And I think we just have to agree that at some level in the future, more behavioral, all the activity will be housed, understood, and analyzed. What does that mean will be different? So just think about it. Take that for a fact for a second. Take that, that you agree that yes, everything's going to be stored and analyzed in the cloud somewhere, everyone's data. What will be different? Well, here's a couple things I think will be different. Number 1, I think training will be different. I think it'll be more precise. I think you'll be able to reinforce someone's behavior quicker. All right. Number 2, I think coaching, sales leadership will be different because now you have more to coach from. Okay, so take the first one. A couple of things we know. Number 1, sales enablement functions within sales organizations are more profound than ever today. It's one of the fastest growing trends we know out there. I think by the end of the year, something close to 40% of companies will have sales enablement or sales effectiveness type of functions separate from sales operations. And we know that ones that do have those types of functions are more successful than the others. We believe that they will lead the charge in this harvesting of data, this whole trend and movement around harvesting data. And again, think about practically what that means. Imagine more than just what a Salesforce.com or Dynamics can capture in terms of an opportunity. Imagine if you can capture all the information around the opportunity, who the buying influences are, who your clients and prospects are, how they think about you, what is their concept of change, what are their win results. If you could capture more information about all the aspects of a deal, could you do something with that if one rep had that information across all of their deals? I think you could. I think you could provide reinforcement training and training to them specific to their needs. Real time, quick bursts. What are the implications from a coaching standpoint? All right, imagine this. There's this big growth in webinar-based sales and teleconference platforms like GoToMeeting, for example, right? We all know that. Like you set these things up, you set up a meeting, you're on the other end, you have it, right? Imagine if those platforms start to build the lexical and voice recognition software in those platforms where they can identify gaps in your conversations so that you're on a conference call and it's giving you advice. It's saying, hey man, maybe you should shut up and listen a bit, okay? Okay, probably wouldn't say it like that, although, if it got to know you, maybe you could, But imagine that, right? Hey, talking too much. Or, hey, great problem question. What are the implications of that? Maybe you should ask him that. So and by the way, this stuff is actually being developed as we speak. This is real. I mean, whether or not it's real in the market now, I can promise you that's where it's going to be. There will be very few conversations that aren't monitored, recorded, stored, analyzed, and insights provided from them. So what does that mean from a coaching standpoint? Instead of saying, hey, Sally, that was a great, how was that meeting? And she would say, well, it was a great meeting. We were really able to spend time talking about that ROI, and I think the client really understood it. Sales manager say, hey, that's fantastic. To tomorrow, sales manager actually gets the analysis of the log from that conversation and says, hey, it sounds like you guys had a great discussion on the ROI, but we have no action items from it. What are we going to do to fix that? It brings precision into coaching at a whole different level. All right? We believe deeply this is around the corner. This is something closer than further away. All right. Second one around personalized content. Just the fact that, as I said, we believe sales and marketing alignment is moving much further down, specifically to intersect with that rep at a much more real level. Sales and marketing alignment is not about the organizational level alignment. It's about aligning individual moments with what reps need. And why do you have to do that? Why is that important? One of the things that many people in this room have heard me talk about is we believe that selling is getting much, 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 much harder than it ever has before. Our own data suggests that since 2012, it's getting harder and harder every single year. Now, why is that? No surprise. Buyers are more informed. We got that. But there's also more people involved. There's more sellers and buyers involved in decisions more now than ever before. And that trend has been increasing. Okay, if there's more people involved, there's more process involved in making decisions. Great. If there's more people and processes involved, that means that there's more politics. There's more going on in those decisions, which the only way you break through that is to add value. Okay? So today, buyers' expectations are going up. The expectation for value is going up in the sales process. In the sales process. The old world of selling, where you show up, you ask really good questions, it's great, isn't good enough anymore. That's just not good enough. You can't differentiate yourself by only just asking good questions. Because everyone's asking questions. You differentiate yourself in the new world of selling by providing value in the process. Now, you've got to do that by understanding your customer. How do you do that? Well, for reps today, they need content. They need specialized, specific content to help them differentiate themselves in the sales process. One of my favorite bits of research here, there was a survey of 700 buyers, and they were asked, what distinguished the winner from everybody else? Why did you pick this? Whoever, for whatever decision you made, why did you pick them? The number one reason was they educated me with new ideas or perspectives. Number one reason. Well, how do you do that? What do you need? Content. You need to be enabled to do that. That's one of the reasons why sales enablement is one of the fastest growing trends in sales. But this is where specialized, personalized content brought down to the rep, provided to them real time, will help. This impact of marketing personalization, if you will. 74% of marketers say targeted personalization increases engagement. 75% of enterprise will be investing in personalized marketing content. Now we know it works. If you just look at email campaigns and personalization around email campaigns, 6 times more effective than generic content. So we know personalization works, but it's up to the seller. To connect those dots. They have to be an expert in the client, they have to be an expert in your stuff, but they also need content along the way. There are a few organizations that I think are leading around this. Does anybody work with ClearSlide, by chance? 1, 2? So their latest release is where they actually includes a rules-based engine that you load up all your content, you develop rules around it, and as you go through the sales process, it fires off content to individual reps depending on situational needs. Now, depending on how detailed you build out those rules, you can get more specialized and personalized in that content. Brainshark's doing a similar activity in their material as well, or in their engine as well. So again, there's a lot of people thinking about this, but there's no doubt about it, it will be easy in the future for reps to be more sophisticated by getting personal content on demand. All right, so about talent. You know, today the number one undergraduate degree that salespeople hold is business administration. The second is communications. It just is by the facts, probably no surprise here. We think the future, that may change. We think it's going to be a different level of talent and skills that are required for success in a different type of environment that's much more data-driven, that's much more sophisticated. Okay? This equation here is kind of how we think at Miller Heiman Group, how we think about performance. It's got a couple of aspects to it. Performance starts with the talent that you bring in the door, the talent that you hire. Now, that talent is defined by the traits that those individuals have, things that they can't learn, things that they're born to do, okay? Things they can't not do. The example I always use, people hear me, is courage. Either you have courage or you don't. You can't take a class in courage, okay? Now you add skills to that. Then you actually develop skills. And then it multiplies by the culture in which they operate in, and then that gives you performance of an individual, okay? So let's think more about the talent and for some matter, the skills required in the future of sales. We think it's going to be more sophisticated. Things like systems thinking, analytical thinking, financial analysis, and management will be critical skills and traits required in individuals in sales. Now, that's going to require a different type of individual. There are 56% faster national growth in employment. So today, according to the U.S., I think it's the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the fastest growing discipline in the job market today is what they call STEM. Everybody heard of STEM, right? Science, technology, math, and engineering. It's growing 56% faster than any other discipline in terms of jobs and hiring. Right? Probably wouldn't be that big of a surprise. Now, there has got to be a correlation to that in sales. Sales is the fastest growing job in the U.S. There are more salespeople getting hired than any other job at a faster rate. So these two things are correlated. Now, why is that? If you end up having an environment that's much more data-rich, that has much more content, that is much more technology-driven, these types of skills and background will be more successful. So we believe that the future profile of a sales professional will look more like an engineer than a communications major. All right? Okay, let me do this. Let me end where we started, and then I'm going to hand this over to the next topic to really get into some more deeper concepts around artificial intelligence. So remember what we believe. We believe that that selling is both art and science. And more importantly, that the acceleration of science in today's world, its impact to selling requires us to think differently, definitely plan differently, which ultimately will charge us to execute differently. So please think about that as we go through the various topics of today. The next speaker, I want to introduce Jim Dickey. Jim Dickey is co-founder of CSO Insights. It's a business that we bought in 2015, one of the smartest decisions that our business has made. It put more science into our business, frankly. And Jim is going to talk about the impact that artificial intelligence is having in the world of selling, not only today, but the future. So please introduce, or please come up, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron.